Welcome to freedomlovin.com, where we focus on building freedom in an unfree world. Through personal development, location independence, and passive income strategies. Now here's your host, Kevin Koskela.
Welcome to Freedom Lovin'. This is Kevin, and this is episode number 59. And today I'm excited to be joined by my friend Andrew Ferebee of knowledgeformen.com. Hey, Andrew, welcome to Freedom Lovin'.
Hey, it's good to be here, Kevin. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So it's been awesome kind of following your journey and seeing you go from really just kind of starting out to having a real business now, and really cool to see that. So can you talk about your story and kind of what led you to an internet business?
Sure. Yeah. I do remember when we first met up and I had no idea what I was doing. And I was like running around to different like internet marketing meetups, trying to figure out what the hell is internet marketing and is it really possible to make money off this?
Yeah.
But that did bring back a little flashback there. How did I get started with this? I think it came out of just briefly graduated college, did everything like I should have in terms of like got involved and was got good grades and was taking on leadership roles, and then that quickly led to a job right out of college. Like the next week I was in training to be to manage a Target store, and quickly I found myself with 80 employees and I was managing a $60 million store. And it sounded great on paper, and I was on a fast track to start making, get into the six figures and move up the ranks. Then I just quickly discovered something, which was that everybody that was in a higher position than me, not everybody, I don't want to say that, and I don't want to talk bad about the company because I know they do their best, and there's a lot of good people there. But ultimately, I just didn't see that the people there were extremely happy with the work that they were doing. They were in positions that were getting paid significantly more than that I was in. And this is like district and regional management type positions. And so I didn't see myself working so hard to get into a position where I saw people constantly, quitting, and there's just a high level of turnover. And that's where I was headed, basically. And I was reading all these books, on personal development. I'm sure you've heard of all the classics like Think and Grow Rich and 4 Hour Work Week and Rich Dad Poor Dad. And these books really started to open up my mind into a different way of living, like basically just telling me that you can take control of your life and that you don't have to go down this path where you go to college, get a corporate job, and then you stay there for 20, 30 years, and then you retire with a nice 401k. Yeah. And then you start that retirement process and really start, living then. And I found myself regretting the drive to work. Like I remember driving to work and I would drive slow. Like I'd be going like 60 miles an hour. And everyone's like honking because it's like 7 a.m. and all this traffic. And I dreaded pulling up and having to go to work. So that's when I knew I was only about 7 months in, which was pretty quick to, I guess, realize that like, hey, the corporate route isn't something that I wanted to do. I was looking at other companies. I even did a few interviews, but I was not happy at all about the interviews, just trying to see what else is out there. And I started just really diving into internet marketing as a way, just kind of looking at what other people were doing. I saw that other people were having success there. And I just started looking at the things that I was really kind of passionate about. Like, what was I already interested in? What was I like working on myself? And I thought, why don't I just take what I'm already passionate about, or things that, areas that I'd like to improve in, which at the time was dating advice and like how to become a better man. And I was looking at all sorts of like relationship advice. It's kind of in that space. And I was really into that stuff. I like the idea that you could read something, you could learn something, and then you can become, you can apply it. And that would help improve yourself, your self-esteem, your confidence, the way others look at you and respect you, your charisma, and really just studying social dynamics. And that was what I was interested in, and just really growing myself as a man. And I just thought, why don't I take what I'm already doing and then just write about it. And so that's how it started. That was my journey into getting into internet marketing. It was just taking something that I was already doing, and then just documenting it on a blog, knowledgeformen.com, which is, I'm very fortunate that domain was available. I didn't know what a domain was when I met with a guy off Craigslist, and I told him about my idea of building a website for men. And he's like, I already had the name Knowledge for Men, but I didn't know that you had to own the domain. I didn't know what that was. Yeah. So I was just like, yeah, it's called Knowledge for Men. So he went to it and he's like, what do you mean? It's not there. And I was like, what? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you have to buy it. I was like, you have to buy the domain. What does that mean? And so we went on, one of the hosting sites, like I think it was Just Host, and we typed it in and it was available. And he's like, if you don't buy it, I'm going to buy it. And I said, I'm going to buy it. And we got into an argument. And then I ended up like putting out my credit card and buying it right there. And then that was how I got the website. And then I just started, slowly figuring out how do things work and what is a blog and plugins and all sorts of stuff. And that's not really the main part, but that's how I got into internet marketing.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. What was your business about? Like at the beginning, what were you trying to do?
Yeah. When I first started, I had an ebook that I wrote. It was basically just like my notes. And, it's nothing really that good. I look at the content that I wrote and it was like right out of college. It was just pretty standard advice. And I turned it into an ebook. So I was trying to sell the ebook on this website. And that was basically it. Like I was getting like 5 visitors a day. And, I was hoping that they would buy my ebook. And I'm not going to lie, like I would probably sell like 2 or 3 a month. And like, I was like, this is so cool. Like I made like $30 online. Like, and I was like, actually, I was like really happy about that $30. And
yeah, I think that's just to interrupt you there real quickly. That's a really good point, because I know a lot of people that want to get into internet business and they're like, well, how much can I make for that? I'm not that excited about $200 a month or whatever. And I'm like, I was like, I made 1 sale and I was jumping up and down, like so excited. I couldn't believe it. And I think that first sale or the first few sales is where there's so much excitement, and that's where you build momentum.
Absolutely. The first sale is pivotal because that it works. For the longest time, I didn't think that it worked. I thought it was just something that other people were, they were lucky. There's something that they were doing that I just had no idea. And when you get that first sale, it really creates like, oh my gosh, it works. You kind of just start getting addicted to that. And then a few sales turns into more sales. And then you finally hit kind of like a point where it's like a threshold that you can't get past. And then that's when you kind of have to like kind of rechange your business. And that's eventually what I got into, is I really started diving into internet marketing. And eventually I was able to focus on just traffic is what I focused on. It was like, how do I get more traffic? Because if I get more traffic, I can, obviously this will lead to more sales, not really understanding how, conversion works and all that. But I focused on getting a ton of traffic on the blog just by writing articles. And I started getting traffic. Some of my articles are going viral. I was writing articles that were getting like 10,000 views, 50,000 views, over 100,000 views. I have one article that I wrote that got over 200,000 views. And it was just insane.
And that's on your site?
Yeah, it's on my website, knowledgeformen.com.
Awesome.
I had quit my job by this point, which is, really dumb idea to just quit your like well-paying job. If I could go back in time, I would have just continued to work, and also on part-time, just really focus on building, monetizing the blog and building a business before I just quit my job and had no income, livable income when I quit my job. And I think that's kind of when I met you, as I had quit my job and I was blogging at the time, and I just had a bunch of traffic, but that was like another threshold that I had to get past. It was like, hey, I had this traffic. Like, what do I do with this? What's the next step here?
Yeah. So you went into a market that was obviously saturated at that point, but you had the kind of the momentum going because you already had the traffic. You were writing articles and getting traffic. So you it was sort of like a confidence builder at that point, right?
Oh yeah. I never really looked at it like that, like what market am I going to get into? Like, what is the best market from like kind of like an analytical, like marketing standpoint? I was just like, this is the stuff that I like, and this is what I'm doing. And I wasn't really trying to really make money from this. I was just really experimenting. And I felt like it was like a platform for growth for myself. was what it was. It was like, instead of journaling on a paper where it's just for me, I was just being vulnerable and authentic and opening up my journal to the rest of the world. That's what it was. And I just started doing these crazy challenges and definitely started exploring the dating side, as because I had just broken up and I wanted to work on that area of my life, and that got, tons of traffic. And I just continued writing and writing until I really just ran out of things to write. Because I mean, I was writing based off life experience.
Yeah.
And, I was younger at the time. And that was when I had to make that pivot. And I started interviewing other people on the blog. And then I found that it wasn't getting as much traffic as the articles that I was writing. So then I looked at like, what are the best places to showcase an interview? And that was when my brother actually listens to podcasts, and he's like, oh, why don't you do a podcast? Like, that's basically what podcasting is. It's interviewing people.
Yeah.
That was basically the tipping point for me to start a podcast, to continue, bringing traffic to the website. That was the next phase. It was the podcast, which was actually really unique, because most people who start a podcast, they don't have traffic. They're just starting a podcast and they have zero traffic to their website, and they have, in many cases, zero community. And it's a really tough position to be in. A lot of podcasters struggle in that area and struggle to really take off with their podcast because they have no one to like really give them the boost.
Right.
And so when I started my podcast, I was fortunate because I had a ton of traffic. Like, my blog was getting, at the time, like 90,000 views a month. And so when I approached guests to be on my show for a podcast that hadn't launched yet, I was able to say like, hey, I sent them screenshots. This is how much traffic I'm getting. And I was able to quickly get some very, credible guests, like my favorite author, which I was so, I'm still happy that I got him. But Robert Greene, which, I had read all his books, and he's just great, he's just like a Yoda is what he is. And he was like my opening guest on my show.
Yeah.
So that was, and then because I had great guests and I was able to really leverage the new and noteworthy period in iTunes and start shifting some of that traffic that I had to the podcast, which boosted my rankings in iTunes, and naturally and organically, the podcast started to catch fire. And another critical point was I launched the podcast in November 18th was when I launched it last year. And you have new and noteworthy for 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. And the holidays is just an amazing time to launch your podcast, because there's millions and millions of new iPods and iPads and all these, iTunes products, that the statistics show that more people are active on the iTunes store within the first 30 days than they are in the entire history of owning their Apple device.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a ton of people getting on iTunes for the first time and who want free content. And so a podcast, it's a great time to launch a podcast, is like late November, early December.
Yeah, that's great stuff. So just to kind of go through your story here, you kind of went against the grain because, and I sort of did this too when I started out, you went into something you just knew about. You didn't do a ton of research. Like, you didn't go through and weigh all these keywords and try to figure out if it was the exact right niche. You just went down the path of like, hey, I know about this stuff, I'm going to write about it. And then you started getting traffic, and then you started your podcast, not knowing much about podcasts. And it was sort of like, you didn't just follow some advice of somebody, you just sort of did what kind of the next logical step was, and sort of use the momentum to build up your site, which I think is really cool, because that kind of shows you can go into any niche really and succeed if you do it the right way. It looks like you have. So, and your podcast, so how many listeners do you have now?
The podcast gets about 100,000 downloads a month. And it's around that point. Like, some months it'll be like 90, and then I'll go up to like 100. And then last month it was 105. And so it's just slowly going up. And I'm not seeing like huge leaps, but right. I'm very happy with, having 100,000 downloads. It's just a good number. So nothing to complain about there.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you kind of pivoted a little bit with your business, because you started out as just kind of dating advice, and now you're doing kind of more of a knowledge for men. So it's more of a men's advice for a whole bunch of different topics. So how were you able to do that? Like, what was your strategy there?
A lot of it was myself. I was really interested in dating, and then I started dating girls, and then I realized like there's so much more to being a man than just like having your dating life taken care of, and there's so much more about being a man than just women. So I started exploring other topics that would also help men become better men. And a lot of it had to do with just where I was at. A lot of the guests just kind of chronicle where I'm at in my own personal development stage. I'm just like, oh, like I'd be interested in talking to this person. It's really just like, who am I interested in talking to? Which is one of the really cool things about being a podcaster is in your niche, you can really dominate your niche because you can look at someone that you want to talk to, tell them that you have a podcast and tell them your numbers and previous guests you've had on the show. And that's pretty much it. And most guests, unless they're, really crazy celebrities, which I've been getting, but for the most part, you can get in touch with almost anybody within your niche with a podcast. And that's what I'm doing is I'm personally trying to grow myself, and I'm asking questions that I'm genuinely concerned about here. I'm not having like a fake conversation. Like I'm genuinely trying to get as much information as I can from the guests so that I can, relay that information over to my audience, but also at the same time, just grow at the same time. So it's such a win-win situation. So yeah, the pivot came out of my own desire to grow and branch out of dating, and understanding too that just like dating's not the end all be all. It's not like once you get that taken care of, there's so much more to life. So that's where I came from.
Right. And so you were able to, with your podcast, you were able to kind of make that transition and continue to grow the site and increase traffic.
Increase traffic, bring a new type of audience and listenership to my show. And that's probably been the best because the dating industry is not what I wanted to be known as. I did not want to be known as the dating podcast. There are some dating coaches on the show because I understand it is important. A lot of guys do have a pain there, but it's not what I wanted to focus on. And so bringing in a wide variety of different people has really opened up and kind of changed my demographics a little bit, but in a really good way. I really like talking to my listeners because I like want to meet them because I'm like, because like they like the same stuff I like, and it makes it for a really good audience.
Really cool. Yeah, you had James Altucher on one of your shows, which I thought was awesome because I love that guy. I read his blog and I listen to his show all the time. And I actually tried to reach out to him. I couldn't get him to respond. I was like, damn, I think I was about maybe 6 months too late because he just kind of took off in as far as fame goes in the last year or so.
Yeah, he did. He came out with his book went crazy, and then he came out with another book called The Power of No. His podcast is blowing up, and that's podcasting. And what's unique about him, just like I said, is he came into podcasting already with an existing audience, which allowed him to grow at a pivotal rate. And like we're seeing that with Tim Ferriss too. Like he just came in, boom, and just blew up the podcasting. It's gotten him a ton of new people, and his podcast is already. I just looked. It got best of iTunes, like best new podcast for 2014.
Wow.
So I mean, and if you look over at his site, even right now, he's got like a new homepage. So like he's definitely taking advantage of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's an awesome show too. So do you have any more tips on just becoming a successful podcaster for anyone that's thinking about going that route?
Sure. So I know I've kind of alluded that you need to have an audience in order to really thrive. It's definitely not true. It helps. That's all. But I think one thing that's really helped me is being as authentic and vulnerable as possible and really just revealing your true self. This can be the most powerful thing. This can like make you more popular than like a star or a celebrity, because people, like when you're really being authentic and you're revealing who you are and you're not trying to be somebody else or trying to act like you're a professional and you're just you, it's like that's what people are looking for. And that's what I've discovered is that people just want to meet you. They don't want to meet this like corporate guy who's trying to pretend like he has this wildly successful podcast. Like I hop on the show and I'm very relaxed and just I say what I want to say. I say random jokes and I do quirky things, and I'm not trying to put on a facade like I'm somebody else. And I think that might not be what someone wanted to hear, but in my opinion, I think that's just one of the most powerful ways to really connect with someone. A lot of the personal development stuff I've done a lot of it is just like really being happy with who you are and being authentic. And when you put that into your content, and this goes with your blog writing too, this is like the same stuff I use with my writing. Totally. It's like people can connect to it. It increases your copy, your conversion. So being authentic, vulnerable, and just revealing your true self is key. Also consistency, of course. Podcasting, a lot of people will have a show and then I'll talk to some people and they're just not consistent with their show in terms of publishing schedule. Yeah. This can even go with blogging. So a lot of the stuff that applies to, what makes a successful blog is very relevant with what makes a successful podcast. And also when I'm interviewing guests, it really helps to understand what it's like to be interviewed. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be an interviewer, I highly recommend you have somebody interview you, and or reach out and try and get on a few shows, because you can learn so much when you're on the other end. And I didn't do that until a few months after my podcast, when people started reaching out, and I was like, okay, but the dynamics completely change when you're on the other side of the microphone and you are the one being interviewed. And even like right now. But what I learned is that sometimes the guest or the podcaster, in my experience, it's been actually very common, is that the podcaster just like doesn't really dig. Like I could be alluding to a topic and like I'm actually going to go into something like really big, and it's going to be this really cool content I'm about to put out. And then the podcaster will just like simply like move on or like cut me off and then go into a different direction. Yeah. And then it really like throws off the momentum of myself or even the guest. So I've taken that. And so when I'm interviewing a guest, like I really dive deep, and a lot of this has to do with just like the things I learned with social dynamics and relating with people. But it's like someone's telling you something, and that's like a shield, and like they're kind of like they tell you like the outer layer of what is important, and then like ask why, and then like dive deeper, ask them to elaborate more, and ask them like how do they feel about this, and try and go deeper into that topic. And then like all of a sudden you get to the gold, and then the guest will just like unleash their best work, or like they'll unleash content that like they've been holding in and they haven't released ever before. And I found that to be extremely rewarding, not only for myself as a podcaster, but for my listeners, because they get to hear parts of the guest that is on no other show. And that's really valuable in terms of keeping listeners to your show, because a lot of your podcast listeners subscribe to multiple podcasts of the same niche. So it's really, you got to have good content. And I find that by digging deep into topics, you can pull out like gold mines of information from your guests.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that, Andrew?
I think so far it's going pretty good. So
yeah, no, I agree with you. I actually love the long form podcast. I know everyone has their own take on how it should be, and I think what you said about people kind of just cutting their guests off is because they're trying to squeeze in, like they're like, my show is 30 minutes, so I do 30-minute shows and that's it. So I have to squeeze in all this info within that 30 minutes. Whereas I kind of like the Joe Rogan style of just rambling about whatever comes up, and it doesn't really matter like if it's on a schedule or not. And that's kind of more my thing. I tend not to try to keep it to any one length of time. And I think that part of that also has to do with podcasting is still brand new, even though it's been around for a while. It's still new to most people. And so people are kind of going off of this idea like radio shows where everything has to be a format. And in the world of podcasting and the internet, it's kind of up to whatever you want to do. And some people will hate it if you don't have it completely formatted and exactly down like something, but other people are going to love it. So I think you hit something right there.
Yeah. I used to say my show's about 40 minutes. And I mean, honestly, most of my episodes are anywhere from like 30 minutes, depending on the guest. Like if the guest says like, oh, I have another call at this time, then I respect his time and I speed things up. But if the guest just gives me his time, like I'll get as much information as I can out of the guest as possible. And then I'll just go back to the editing if I find something that, that just didn't really matter as much, and then I'll just edit it out and, make it good. But yeah, I don't really have a time restriction. I'm very loosely defined on my show.
Yeah. Awesome. So just kind of switching subjects a little bit, how does on your website, you've got all these different ways of getting people in, you've got your blog, your podcast, and how do you do your sales funnel? Yeah.
So the first thing that, this is like a couple things. Like the biggest thing for me was like learning how to build a list. That was like, we've all heard that before. It's like build a list. And so it's actually not easy to do. And that's what I discovered. It's actually really, really hard to build a list, especially nowadays. Every website wants your email address. There's not one website that doesn't want your email. So It gets really challenging, and it's not like how it used to be is what I feel like. I feel like you really have to have this down. So the first thing that I'm doing is if you were to go to my website, knowledgeformen.com, it's like right away you'll see that I'm offering something for free, and I have like copy that I've tested. It's real big, it's real bright, and I'm offering just like a simple guide, which is basically known as like a freebie item or like a lead magnet, if you will. And it's pretty simple to do. And then I have it in several areas on my site, like on the sidebar, I have a pop-up, and that's, been converting pretty well. I also use lead pages as a tool, and then also pop-up domination as a tool. And the first thing that I'm doing is building my email list. And then right away, I'm offering them a tripwire offer right away, which is actually something that I know a lot of people don't do. But right after they sign up, I welcome them into my community, and then I offer them a program called Double Your Confidence, which is it's simply that. I promise to, check out this program. It's only $7. It over delivers on value. It should be worth something like $67 or $97. So it's just like this video. I promise to double your confidence in less than 45 minutes. And so it's pretty hard. And then offer 30-day money back guarantee. And, I've tested all this different copy and stuff. And so that's what I'm quickly trying to get somebody to become a buyer inside the sales funnel. Subscribers are good, right? Like a lot of your subscribers will just fade away. Like they won't do anything after a certain amount of time. So my goal is to quickly create a buyer's list. And then this is the list that's really going to make money. This is how I'm going to support my business. After that, I take them to this is their email. However, I'm actually switching the funnel up. I'm really excited. I'm using a new program called ClickFunnels, which offers the one-click upsells and downsells. And it's just incredible. I don't even know Russell Brunson. He's the founder, but check out ClickFunnels. It's an awesome program. But the next thing I do is I take them into a continuity program, which is a membership site, which I actually just relaunched recently called the Lion's Den, where I take guys through the 4 phases of self-discovery, of goal setting, and understanding the foundations of business and relationships. And it's just like this personal development program where they're getting monthly content. It's a private Facebook group, and we do like Google Hangout mastermind sessions. And I know that might sound like a lot of work up front, and especially because I do mastermind sessions, but ultimately like people within your community will become leaders, and then you can just pay them something, something reasonable, and they'll be happy to kind of run that program for you.
Yeah. So that's ultimately you want them in your membership area. That's kind of
because it's a monthly continuity program, and I know not everyone does a continuity program, but I really like it because I know I consider that like my base. Like this is how much money I'm making, and then everything else, if I do product launches, which I can get into later, is kind of like a bonus, and this is like extra bumps of cash. But ultimately, it's like the tripwire is not meant. The front end offer is not meant to make money off of. Like I don't really care how many I sell, except for the fact that those guys are probably interested in buying other programs and products.
So does it work? So when they go to the tripwire, this is stuff I do all the time too, so I'm really interested. So they buy the tripwire, then do you present them with an offer for something else, or is that?
No, I'm going to with ClickFunnels. I'm going to have the upsell right there.
Okay.
Right now, what I do is I build a relationship through email autoresponder, and then I start presenting the opportunity to the funnel to the Lion's Den, which is my continuity program. And I think that's actually a really good model because I had to test it. So I had to test and see if the continuity program right after the tripwire is going to be good. Some people might not like that. It might be coming off a little too hard, and that's not really how I don't want to like do that to my customers. But right now I'm building a relationship through email autoresponder, and then through email I present the offer of the continuity program, which a lot of them take up, and I offer a 30-day period where they get a money back guarantee. And if they don't like that, then I'll let them try it out for $1 and still give them the 30-day money back guarantee.
Okay. Yeah. So how much is the monthly for that?
It's $29.
Cool.
It's $29. And so it's really like, I want it to be kind of like a no-brainer. I'm offering a ton of value. It's like the guys in there, they say it's worth more. The testimonials are incredible. They're all live testimonials that I've gotten from some of the current members who've gotten really amazing results in terms of like we've helped guys like quit their jobs, launch businesses, help guys write their books, help guys improve in their current job, help them in their relationships. And so it's really like a men's group. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but it's also a mastermind where we're trying to help each other grow in our businesses and just in our lives as well. So it's just all this stuff that like I'm really passionate about, kind of combined into one. And then they're all listeners of my podcast as well. So it's like, it's a really cool community to build, because what I'm also finding is that through this continuity program, other products that I come out with, these are like my best buyer. Like they pretty much, these are the best buyers that I have because they know me personally through the podcast. And also I talk to them in the mastermind sessions and then also in the private Facebook group. So it's like, I'm building such a strong relationship with these guys. So I love the continuity program, and I like it for having that steady income, but also you're building solid relationships with these people. Like I'm becoming friends with these guys in the group. And, some of them are kind of local. So we meet up and just have coffee, and it's just really cool. Like I really like meeting these people, and then, I get paid to do it and they buy my future products. But
that's awesome.
Launches is kind of like the next, that's something that I would definitely recommend someone to look at is the Jeff Walker product launch sequence.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a good one.
That's definitely, he wrote a book called Launch. And so if there's anything like, you get out of this is like, just go to Amazon and buy that book for $7. I read that book and that's what like launched, my businesses. That's what launched these programs and services. Was I just followed exactly what he said.
Yeah.
You don't even have to buy his $2,000 program. You can just buy the $7 book, and there's enough information in there for you to get a launch going and start making some money.
Yeah. Launches are a lot of work and they can be pretty stressful. But if you follow the Jeff Walker formula, it seems to work exactly as he says. Like you just do it, just copy it, and then it'll work, which is cool. It's like not a lot of products do that.
Yeah, it basically you send 3 videos that build hype, and it kind of explain your story and the transformation that's possible. And then you start pre-selling in the 3rd video. So by the time you send your launch email and your video sales letter or your text, or your sales letter, they're already pre-sold and they're already like waiting for you to come out. Like right now, I like to think of pre-launch content as trailers. And so we all saw the new Star Wars trailer, and I want to see Star Wars. I'm intrigued, and it's not going to come out for a year. So It's like that's even at the highest levels, even like Apple does pre-launch content, and they tease you with content with like features and stuff, and then they launch it, and then it's just crazy. So his sequence allows you to create that same type of effect on your email list, and it's just it does work, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you give like just a few tips on to somebody we talk about freedom on the show all the time, and what would you advise people to do that want to build more freedom into their lives? I mean, like anything from mindset to, do this, get a website, do something practical.
Yeah, cool. I think what can really hold people, one thing that I've been really good at, like just most of my life, is just taking imperfect action. Like I didn't know it at the time, but I've always just been kind of the guy who's going to do something. You take all of your resources, the time, and what and then you just make the best of that. Right. And it doesn't need to be perfect. And I found that to be extremely, like, I'm not saying put out crap. I'm just saying like, do the best you can given everything, all the circumstances you have and the money, time, resources, and then just put it out. And so that's just like the key right there in terms of like actually getting, the website. And like, there's so many times where it's like, I know that I need to do this, or like when I was first going to invest in lead pages, for example, I was like, I don't know, like, do I want to be a part of this continuity program? I don't know if this is going to work. I'm gonna have to learn this thing. And, I don't want to do that. And I just did it. And then all of a sudden, like my blog, my email list started growing. ClickFunnels just came out and not too long ago. And I was like kind of hesitating about it. It's pretty expensive. It's a pretty expensive program. I was just like, no, just do it. Just get it done. And then just put together a funnel. Like it's not perfect, but it's done and it works and it's converting and money's coming in. And same with product launches and like everything that I've done, even my podcast, it's like, just like get it out. And then you'll realize that your base level of what you're putting out is actually going to get better and better over time. So it's like, even though it might not be perfect to you, it's going to look perfect to somebody else.
Yeah.
So taking imperfect action is just a great way to like get things done, because nothing in your life, and if you're looking for freedom or more money, is going to happen unless like you start making some of those changes. And there's a lot of like, mindset stuff that goes in with that. And it's really hard to get out of. And so taking imperfect action can just help you kind of navigate yourself through those roadblocks, because it's really challenging. Like, I didn't really think you can make a living online. I really thought that it was like hoaxy, and it's definitely possible. Another thing I'd say is I really struggled for like 8 months straight, where I was really just living off, I was like barely like scraping by, like nothing seemed to really be working in terms of monetizing. I was getting all this traffic and all this like hoopla with the podcast, and it was really great. But in terms of like my financial stability, it was like, it really wasn't improving. So what I did was really cool for me. And it really, when I did this is when I really started to make money. And this is when I was able to implement all the things that I was talking about with like the lead magnet, tripwire, creating products and doing launches. Was I divided my week and really took ownership of my schedule. And I said Monday and Tuesday is when I spend time creating content. And this is like in terms of podcasts or blog. So this is just like focusing on interviewing people, the podcast, et cetera. And I really just focus on these 2 days. And some days you might have others because you have to work with someone else's schedule. But the majority of the time, it's like these 2 days I'm focusing on content creation. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then part-time on Saturday, Sunday, like a few hours, I'll spend on creating money. Like, how can I make more money? Like, literally, that's what I'm focused on. And how can I get more leads? Like, how can I improve my copy? How can I improve my, just like A/B test different things on my website? What products can I create? Like, who can I survey on my list? How can I I'm focused on creating money. And when I have a day, when you sit down and you look at your schedule and there's nothing on it because you emptied your schedule, you cleaned it out, and you blocked your schedule from allowing other people to schedule in on that time, it allows you to just sit down and you have 12 hours. Like, I'll also, so a lot of times work 12 hours a day, on average. And in 12 hours, like, what can you do to make more money? Like, that's a lot of time. And then if you do that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then like 3 or 4 hours a day on Saturday and Sunday, like in the evening, or just kind of when you're winding down, whatever, now you're looking at like 40 hours. Like, in 40 hours, can you figure out how to make like $3,000 a month? Like, how, like when you really put it that way, it really helped me, because for months and months, almost a year, I was just like not making anything happen, because I would just wake up and just start like working. And I thought because I was working hard and I was putting out content that, it's going to come, but it didn't come. Like, I had to like make it come. I had to like take control of my schedule and really start learning how this works. And so a third thing briefly would be modeling what already works. And so just like, it's as simple as that, is like, what is it that you want to create? Like for example, I created a continuity program. I looked at other continuity programs that were in similar spaces, and I just looked at like what they were offering, like what was their price point, how did they deliver it, and even go as far as purchasing that program and getting inside there and like really going behind the scenes and like looking at what they're doing. Because if they're successful at it, then look at what they're doing. Like, every little detail, like go to QuickTime and record the process from when you purchase to the thank you page, to the welcome video. What is he saying? What is he or she saying? To the emails that you get, and then put this into a document. And like, you don't even need to like buy their program that tells you how to do all this. Like, you can just look at what they're doing to you, because they're going to give you their best work. And then, I know I don't recommend this. Like, I'd recommend just like, consuming their program. But if you are on a serious budget, then obviously you could just return the program after. But I would recommend you not do that. And I'm not a supporter of that. But you have to do what you have to do. And so that's just model already works. And then what I like to do after that is just like, as you start seeing some success, like start making it uniquely your own and start adding some little twists here and there, and then find your own way. It's like Bruce Lee has that quote. It's like, take what is useful and then make it uniquely your own. Yeah. And then, so I love Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee saying that. And then Pablo Picasso says this, which is like, great artists copy and and like good artists copy, great artists steal. And that's Pablo Picasso. And I mean, there's just a lot to be said about that. It's like, take what already works. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. It'll save you so much time.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. It's a great point. Do you outsource much these days?
This is actually what I'm working on now. I've done quite a few outsourcing in terms of like web development and graphic design, but in terms of having like a dedicated virtual assistant, right now I have an intern. It's just again, somebody within my community who just like loves what I'm doing, and I'm helping him grow as a person, and we just like chat via Skype and Facebook chat, and he just does, like, he's a college student. He's just super motivated. He wants to become a Navy SEAL, and I believe he can. He's got just like the motivation, and just getting people within your community. That's what I've done to help you do a lot of the like updating the blog and like taking the podcast and turning it into a blog post and publishing that. And a lot of these little things that like you really shouldn't be doing. I think that's definitely the next evolution. And I've started to do that in recent months. And that's been huge in terms of just not only productivity, but just like your own peace of mind. Like, I didn't realize how important it was until I had someone who was just sending me emails of stuff that was done. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, why didn't I do this a long time ago?
Yeah. And
there are ways to do this without having to pay, which is like offering, you have products and services, just like give those products and programs to them for free and just help them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what's your next step in your business?
Yeah, there's so much. And a lot of it is really building out. I kind of have like a pretty good front end of my business, which is like the Tripwire continuity program. And then I have like a dating program, but I really want to have a stronger back end funnel. And so I'm working on some higher ticket programs and also live programs, so I can really add more value to my audience. So that's like the immediate goal that I have. Like, that's it right now. And really learning just more about internet marketing and applying and growing, in all aspects of life there. But just working on the back end of the funnel and ensuring that I don't have any like leaks inside the funnel, because just came back from a conference and the guy's like 20% of your money is made on the front end and 80% is on the back end. Yep. And so, really trying to dial that in and offer more value to my existing audience.
Cool. Well, Andrew, it's been great having you on the show, and you dropped a lot of knowledge bombs. I'll put all the links in the show notes of this show. And again, it's Andrew Ferebee of knowledgeformen.com. Andrew, thanks again for coming on.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Freedom Lovin' Podcast. To break free today, head on over to freedomlovin.com and download our free guide. 7 practical tips to living free in an unfree world.